Junction, we've got Deborah Flora from Douglas County. Juli Henry, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it. She was unable to make it due to weather. We've got State Representative Ron Hanks from Fremont, Colorado, and Greg Moore from Evergreen. We also have Peter Yu. He was another candidate who wasn't able to make it. Unfortunately, he is under the weather. But I was asked to say that he has committed to come and speak to stand for the Constitution before the caucus. So look for him to come to a future meeting. And then when these fine people are done with their statements, we're going to hear a representative for Gino Campagno and Joe Odea. So, excuse me. Before we get started, I'm going to go over the rules. So, each candidate is going to get 60 seconds for his or her opening and closing statements. Where's my timekeeper? She's ready to go. All right. I said 90, didn't I? Oh, well, I thought I said 90 seconds, all right? And you guys know that's who you need to look at for your cues, right? Okay, great. If time allows, there'll be a select number of questions from the audience at the end of the program. So everybody here who's at a table, you'll see those white index cards. If there's a question that pops up in your head, write that question down, and someone will be coming around to collect them, and then we'll be asking all of the candidates together at the end. This is for you candidates. We really want to get to know you and why we should vote for you, not what you think of other candidates, okay? You guys will have 90 seconds to respond to the questions. We ask that you be respectful of your allotted time, obviously. And the order of responses will rotate through the candidates. So, Deborah, you might answer the first question, and then Ron will call on you first, and so and so and so and so. So each of you gets a chance to go first, all right? Okay, here we go. All right. So, Deborah, we'll start with you. As a newly elected U.S. Senator, what would your top 3 legislative goals be? Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm so excited to get to the questions. Yes, Deborah, we're going to start with you in your opening statement.
Testing. All right. Wonderful. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for this amazing turnout. I want to tell you what I see here is confirming what I see all over the state. There's a great awakening happening, not a great awokening. Now that is good news, by the way. 2022 is our year to restore this great republic, but it will take people of courage, clarity, and conviction, just like everyone here. You see, I know this firsthand. I grew up in Colorado on Lowry Air Force Base, the daughter of a lieutenant colonel. My husband is an 82nd Airborne veteran, and when I was Miss Colorado, I traveled to the Soviet Union during the coup. When I was there, I witnessed firsthand the palpable absence of freedom, and I have to tell you, it was in that moment that I resolved I would also fight for individual liberty like my father did when and if that day came. Today is that day, and that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. You see, as the founder of Parents United America, a radio host, a director of public policy, I have stood up and tried to expose and oppose the radical leftist schemes in our state capitol. Like many of you here, I've flipped school boards and introduced parental rights legislation. As the daughter of a veteran, I understand how important our elections are, so there is confidence in the bedrock of our republic. Those are some of the things that I will stand for. You see, I've stood strong with many of you, from the school board to the state house, and now I'm ready to stand for all of us in the U.S. Senate. But if we want to stop the radical schemes of Michael Bennett, who votes 100% of the time with Joe Biden and 96% of the time with Bernie Sanders, we have to do something different. It's time for a candidate who has a proven track record of standing alongside you for what is right, but who can also win in November by inviting our fellow citizens to join us on the common ground of common sense. We can do this. This is the year to let Michael Bennett know that 2 terms is 2 terms too many. So I invite you to join me and go to deborahflora.com. Thank you and God bless you.
That sounds hot. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, all you citizens from Mesa County and neighboring counties. Thank you, Stand for the Constitution, for putting this on. This is a heck of a crowd. I've been out here before. I see a lot of familiar faces that I saw while we were talking in support of Tina Peters over the many and multiple events out here. I'm grateful to be here again. I'm Ron Hanks. I'm a current state representative out of Fremont County. I have a website I'd like to send you to. It is hanks4colorado.com. Check out my videos. Check out the reasons why I'm running. I'll tell you a few more here right now. My dad was in the timber industry, and I did a lot of planting of saplings as a kid. He then went into nuclear power, and it got my interest up on energy issues, and I went and fracked in the oil fields of North Dakota when I wasn't in the military. I put in 32 years in the Air Force, active and reserve, enlisted and commissioned. And I have seen this country from the blue-collar side, and now I'm seeing it from the state representative side, and I tell you, we have our work cut out for us. We have tyranny in our midst at the state and the federal level. That's why I'm running. I've been labeled a firebrand. I've been labeled an insurrectionist. I've been labeled a seditionist. I've been labeled a racist. I reject all of those. What I am is a military vet that can no longer stand idly by and watch our nation fall into decline. And I've been offered the opportunity to stop. So look forward to talking some more.
How's that? Is that a little better? Okay, good. All right, well, my name's Greg Moore. I'm running for Senate. I'm a career educator. I work at Colorado Christian University. I live in Evergreen with my wife and 3 boys. And I am a political scientist. I study politics. I've never done politics. This is the first time I've entered a foray like this. I'm an evangelical Christian. It's really nice to be in company here. I love Jesus. For some reason, he loves me. And I've served the Lord in China for 14 years, and as an educator there. And it's I came back because it's becoming really a totalitarian nightmare over here. And the reason I'm getting in politics is to make sure that doesn't happen here, because it's going in that direction if we're not careful. We need to bring people who believe in God, who believe in the Constitution, who have not given up on this great country. We need to elect people like that to represent us. I have a campaign website, moreforcolorado.com. I've got about 14 platform items. I can't go over them all here, but about 4 of the things I'll talk to you about tonight: economic problems, lack of affordability, crazy energy prices. I think they're all due to the Democrats' policies. Under President Trump, we were energy independent. The prices were low, the economy was rolling. What happened? Joe Biden and Michael Bennett and people like him, that's what happened. School choice, as we saw in Virginia, that's important to Americans. My kids have been homeschooled for most of their lives, and we need choice like that as parents. That's important to us. We gotta, fight against critical race theory, and we gotta get people on the Board of Education. National security is another thing I care about because I study China. I'm worried about China. We need people in Washington who understand the dangers of China and Russia and countries like that. And divisions in our country. I hope to heal some of those divisions and get more Republicans elected. Thanks for your time.
All right, and next I'm going to call up, on behalf of Joe O'Dea, a young man named Bo. He's single.
That is true. Okay, so good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here this evening. I'm here on behalf of Joe O'Dea. O'Dea, so that's O''D''E'. I thought that was kind of cool. He's a conservative running for the U.S. Senate. Joe's an outsider, not a career politician. And he also has an amazing life story. Joe was adopted by a Denver cop when he was only a few days old. Joe's dad was very old school. He sent him to Catholic school and made him wash dishes to pay his tuition. Joe's always have and always will be a working man. He became a carpenter when he was a teenager. He dropped out of college and started a concrete and construction company. The company still, to this day, employs hundreds of Coloradans. Joe was running for Senate because, like you and me, he's worried about our republic. Joe Biden is making a mess of it, and we all kind of know that, right? Fellow conservatives, Joe's the man that can beat Michael Bennett. Joe O'Day is a fighter and a winner. Last week, the largest organization of police in the state endorsed Joe. The organization, the Police Protective Association, were huge supporters of Donald Trump. Here's what they said about Joe. Joe is a man of wisdom, integrity, and guts. Joe will represent the voice of working people, and Joe will stand for the police. Joe has also pledged to only serve 2 terms. What? Here's what Joe says about term limits. The career politicians who control DC have made a mess of the republic. Biden and Pelosi are living proof of why term limits are necessary. So, write it down, Joe O'Day, O''D''E', a working man who will fight for you and the people of this country. Thank you.
And next we have another young man who I know is not single. Sorry, ladies. I know his wife very well. He is going to talk about Gino Campano.
Yep, my name is Corey Anderson. Member at large with Stand for the Constitution. I was asked to read a statement from Gino Campagna. It says, friends, my name is Gino Campagna. I'm running to be your next U.S. Senator. I'm not a politician. I'm a father, coach, builder, and entrepreneur who is firmly committed to fighting for the American dream. That's why I'm running for U.S. Senate, to stop Michael Bennett and Joe Biden from turning the American dream into a socialist nightmare. I'm so sorry I couldn't be here with you this evening. I know how hard you worked to put this fantastic event together and how important the Western Slope is to Colorado. I can't wait to get back out to Mesa County and look forward to the opportunity to meet you in person very soon. My campaign is all about fighting for the American dream. Growing up the son of a legal immigrant in Fort Collins, I worked alongside my father, a stonemason, hauling stone and turning sweat into profit. I took that experience and lived out my own American dream, bootstrapping my own business from nothing that has now built thousands of homes across northern Colorado. The American dream is going from being the son of an immigrant to being a successful entrepreneur and then being appointed by President Donald Trump to serve in his administration. Brick by brick, liberals are tearing down the American dream. We need to replace Michael Bennett with someone willing to fight for the American dream, and I am that fighter. Recently, I've earned endorsements from Chad Wolf, President Trump's top immigration official, Congressman Bob Schaefer, founder and chairman of the Leadership Program of the Rockies, David Bernard, former Interior Security to President Trump, and General Keith Klogg, retired, former Grassroots Network and strong fundraising with us. We have resources to win this primary and defeat Michael Bennett in November. Colorado needs new leadership to help preserve our Constitution so that our children and grandchildren can live that same American dream. I look forward to the opportunity to meet you in person very soon and share more about my background, vision for Colorado, and why I'm the right choice to take on Michael Bennett. Please visit genoforstate.com to learn more about my campaign to fight for the American dream. Thank you.
One thing I want to do real quick is while we have this amazing crowd, I just want to get a picture from the stage to capture how many amazing patriots are here, all right? You know how they like to play with crowd size and say that nobody ever shows up to these things. So now we've got proof, right? All right, now we're finally going to get to the questions that I was so excited for. All right, we're going to start with Greg since we let Deborah go first for the statements. And so, Greg, this question is, we'll start with you, and then Ron can go, and then we'll have Deborah go. As a newly elected U.S. Senator, what would be your top 3 legislative goals?
Well, at the break, I was talking to somebody about the Department of Education. It's bloated. This is a federal system. We don't need that much oversight National security would be another one. I really think we need to clarify our relationship with Taiwan and not pussyfoot around and be tougher on Russia right now. I think we should use U.S. air power to deter Russia. And I would say we need to undo the energy policy mess that Joe Biden has made to get prices down at the pump and make life more affordable for regular folks.
I'm sorry, what's the time limit? 90? Okay, the first thing I would look at doing is, as a senator, would be to cut the U.S. government to 30% of its current size, and I'll tell you why. It is not responsive to the American people. It is not responsive to the executive, the chief executive. In the case of Donald Trump, it simply ignored what he wanted it to do. It is weaponized against us. And so we should cut it until it responds. And that would be number one. And then the next thing I would do, I would follow largely what Greg was talking about, energy. I worked in the energy field. And what this administration regime, if you prefer, I do, has done to our energy policy, it has destroyed it. And so we need to, once again, restore our own energy independence. Finally, we have a military that is no longer at the same level of capability and readiness as when I left it at the end of 2017. We have mismanaged it, and we have mandated our best soldiers, airmen, sailor, marine, guardians, Coast Guardsmen out of the service. I'd ask them to come back if they would be so generous and come back, serve, and protect this country again. Thank you.
I just like to stand, so I'm going to. Love the picture, by the way. Great view of all of you. It's wonderful. Here's what I would do. Number one, balanced budget amendment. I am a mom. I'm a parent. I know many of you are. What is happening with the spending of trillions of dollars is immoral. It is bankrupting future generations. In 1997, we had a balanced budget, and it worked. In 2000, the debt was $5.5 trillion. We were approaching $30 trillion, $1 trillion of which we owe to China. That is a national security issue. I don't know about you, but I balance my budget at home and for our business. It's time that our government does the same. The next thing that I would do is we need accountability. Who here is tired of no accountability for the nonsense that is going on in Washington, D.C.? It has got to stop. One of the things I would do, my father, as I said, served in Vietnam, and he passed away a little over a year ago. He's buried at Fort Logan Cemetery with honors. And I miss him deeply, but when the debacle in Afghanistan happened, I was so grateful he was not alive to see it. I promise you that I will go and I will serve on some of these committees to drag truth into light. I will make sure somebody is responsible for the giving away of $85 billion worth of equipment, creating a Taliban military second to none in many ways. I will find out how 13 soldiers were killed, why a president calls parents terrorists, and the Taliban partners. That is wrong. It is time for accountability, and I will go, and I promise you I will bring that to Washington, D.C.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, Ron, we're going to start with you for this question. According to a recent Rasmussen poll, the top two concerns for likely voters are inflation and violent crime. 62% of likely voters are concerned about inflation, and 61%, are very concerned about inflation, and 61% are very concerned with violent crime. For this question, we're going to focus on inflation. As a U.S. Senator, you'll certainly be tasked with voting to increase the debt limit. What are your thoughts on the constant incremental growth of our debt and the future of our dollar? Do you think it's salvageable, and do you have any alternatives?
Well, one thing we ought to do as a legislative branch at the federal level is not pass continuing resolutions. We should not pass omnibus spending bills. We should look at every department as a department unto itself and debate those budgets. And remember, I would cut them by 30%. Here's the thing about our government. it isn't telling the truth about the rates of our inflation. 7% is ridiculous, and we know this because we go out and buy things. The list that the government uses is the things you'll never buy, like a little bag of paper clips and a can of peas. I mean, you go out and try to buy a printer. I tried to buy a replacement printer for one I bought a year and a half ago for $400. It's over $900 now. So I mean, they're lying to us. The federal government it's lied about COVID, it's lied about what our debt is. I do not believe it's $30 trillion. I wouldn't be surprised if it's twice that. So we have, and that's not counting unfunded liabilities. So what do? We go through this government department by department. While we're at it, let's get rid of Department of Energy, get rid of Department of Education. That's anything that they do. Department of Energy has a nuclear surety mission. I had a part in that when I was in the military. We can move to another department, and we've got to cut it to 30% of its current size. Thank you.
Here's the important thing. Government actually has one role, and that is to protect the individual rights of its citizens. That is it. We need to pull back from every other thing, this vast overreach of government to every area of our lives, the spending of trillions of dollars that is fueling inflation that is at a 40-year high at the very least. Right now, we have citizens around our state who are up in the middle of the night thinking, can I heat my home, can I put gas in my car, and can I put protein on my children's plates? For too many, the answer is no in America in a non-wartime situation, and that is absolutely wrong. One of the things that I would do is we need to return to something called no budget, no pay. It basically says this: one of the roles of the government is to have a budget. They have not had a budget in so long, continuing resolution after continuing resolution, kicking the can on down the road onto our children and our grandchildren and future generations. It is unsustainable. I would also pull back on the bureaucratic state. We were never meant to have unelected bureaucrats making laws in place of what the legislator is supposed to be doing. So they've abdicated their rights, they've abdicated their authority. I would definitely pull back the Department of Education because that is one of the most local control issues. As much as we possibly can, let's get back to the 9th and the 10th Amendment. That which is not given to the federal government goes to the states or vice versa, and that which is not delineated to either goes to the people. Let's get it back to the people, let's cut our budget, and let's force Congress to do its job and start with a balanced budget.
All right, violent crime, desperation is one of the reasons people are getting crazy and stealing things. People are out of work because of the shutdowns. Drugs, people are turning into drugs. Fentanyl is flowing into our country. Again, this is a China thing. We got to hold them accountable. We got to stop this. Police defunding. People are, the people in Minnesota are having buyer's remorse about their defunding efforts for the police. Who would want to be a policeman? I respect the people in the blue uniform. They deserve our honor and our respect. It's tougher than ever to be a cop in this country because you try to do the right thing, you're not going to get a lot of support from liberal mayors. And we're letting people out of prison too soon, where people in court are getting very light sentences, so there's very little to hold you accountable. Why not steal? Why not loot? Because you're going to get away with it, or you're going to get a very light sentence and you'll be back out on the street. So these are things we can do to deal with violent crime. Inflation. Energy prices are through the roof. This is a direct response to closing down the pipelines that Joe Biden has done, limiting fracking, limiting exploration for new sources of fossil fuels. We need fossil fuels right now. We could try to shoot for greener policies, and we should move in that direction, but we can't make regular people suffer at the pump until we figure out how we're going to do that. And we can't make ourselves indebted to China for the materials for batteries. Taxes are too high, spending's too high. These shutdowns have cost us a lot, and they're still continuing to cost us a lot. And so we need to turn those things around and get our economy rolling again. Thank you.
You guys are on a roll. Here we go. The idea of, Greg, Deborah, it's your turn to go first. Right, we're going to start with you. Okay. The idea of term limits for members of Congress and Senate has been a discussion topic for many years, yet has never crossed the finish line in terms of actually being implemented. What are your thoughts on U.S. Congressional and Senate seat term limits? Have any of you signed the commitment for term limits? And if not, would you be willing to, and how would you like to see the terms outlined?
Great question. I have signed the term limit pledge, and I am committed to keeping it. For the U.S. Senate, I believe it should be 2 terms. The reality is 12 years in Washington is enough. Our founding fathers had a system in mind of civil servants who would go and serve and come back and live under the very laws that they made. I cannot wait to debate Michael Bennett and ask him, when is the last time you pumped gas in your car? When's the last time you bought groceries and looked at meat that is 3 times what it was just 1 year ago? I promise you, first of all, I don't want to live in Washington, D.C. I love Colorado, the most beautiful state. I am staying here to fight for it because God has blessed us with this incredible place. I can't wait to get home as often as I can. I believe everybody should sign the term limit pledge, which I have done, because it's time we remember that you hire and fire your representatives. I would go to represent you. I would come back frequently so I could listen and hear and see what is going on. It is vital to our Constitution. Career politicians like Michael Bennett, if he is reelected, he will be the longest serving senator in our history. Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi have a combined 70 years in Washington, D.C. That is wrong. That is part of the downfall of a republic. I will promise you, I will serve 2 terms, come back, and I will be answerable to you alone because you will be my boss.
Still on? Yeah, it is. I have not signed it, but I will sign it. I'm persuaded that this is important. You look at Putin and you look at Xi Jinping, the president of China, they remove term limits. That's pretty scary. You know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's a human nature thing. That's not just a Russia or a China or a German thing. And so people who are there too long in Washington become inside the beltway kind of folks. That's what people liked about Donald Trump. I hope that's what you like about us. We're not inside the beltway folks. We live here. We want to know more about what's going on here and try to go to DC and try to make things better for our state and for our country. There's other practical reasons. Senility. This kind of job is very stressful. You stay there too long. Well, I was thinking about Joe Biden, but I won't say anything about him. But it's very stressful. Do you remember Barack Obama's hair? It was black when he started. After about 4 or 5 years, it became white because it's stressful. 12 years is enough for a senator. I'm happy to sign that pledge. Thank you.
I have signed the term limit pledge. I do have a note of caution about term limits. We ought to limit the terms of the Supreme Court too. We don't hear that very often. Let's pick a prime number such as 11 years or 13 years. We can work that out. But more importantly, let's limit the service time of all staff in all departments of all branches of the government, because if you limit your elected officials, you're going to have this de facto deep state rulers behind the picture. So at the same limit or maybe a lesser time limit than a senator, a representative, a Supreme Court justice, you give them a handshake, you give them a coin, you take their access badge, and you wish them well in their next career. I also want to say that I have, in my duties as a state representative, submitted the resolution for a convention of the states, which does indeed deal with balanced budgets and term limits, and that is all that is on that convention call. So it is a very interesting process. It brings it back to the people. Good people can disagree about whether or not it can run away, but the bottom line is it's in the people's hands. Let's discuss it more. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Whose turn is it to go first? I think it's Ron's turn to go first finally. Isn't it? Yep, I think so. All right. Got to make sure it's fair, right? All right. In recent news, Congress members like Nancy Pelosi and others were discovered to have done better trading individual stocks in the stock market than what the S&P 500 has risen. As a U.S. Senator, would you be in support or against the trading of individual stocks for members of Congress and the Senate? If a bill to ban trading was proposed, would you vote yes?
I would vote yes on that, and I'll tell you why. I don't think anybody should profit from service for the people at the federal level or the state level. You know, if there is anybody has any stocks in advance of their period of service, it should go into a blind trust. And you know, this is a problem. This is why term limits are important. We can get these people out of here. They can empower themselves for decades, and then they can build their families into this regime that follows them. And this is the danger we have. And it turns us into a tyranny, like the old kingdoms and so forth. And so if this is truly citizen service, nobody who's doing this for a short period of time should be opposed to the idea of not having any stocks. And I don't have any stocks, by the way. I have a TSP with the government that's in bonds, and I think that's exactly where it ought to be. I don't make any money on it, but you know what? Life's still good. If I'm in this role, that's what people ought to know about me, is I am not making $1 million. I'm not selling a painting for 3 times the price of a Picasso painting that was found and sold at auction. I mean, come on, the corruption we have here, we can stop this. No, it's not.
It's different.
Absolutely. I think the very fact that you have people that go to Washington, D.C. and make maybe $175,000, which is just fine to serve our country, to have that privilege to do so, and somehow become millionaires while they're there. It is inexplicable and it is wrong. And it's called insider trading in any other field. And for it to be legalized and all right in our nation's capital creates what we have now, which is a political elite ruling class, and that has to stop. That's where we see things in other countries and not in the United States of America, where there is an oligarchy that establishes itself and stays there for generations. This is absolutely wrong. We need to stand against that. We need to have absolute transparency. We need to have transparency back in every area of our government. And it's time to stop this generational situation that's going on. And I want to talk to that about one other thing. Many people know that Michael Bennett is a career politician. What they may not know is he's a 3rd-generation politician. His grandfather was with FDR, his father was with Clinton. He grew up in Washington, D.C. He went to St. Albany, the most elite prep school in the nation, and met his friend Hickenlooper at Wesleyan. And we wonder why he doesn't understand Colorado values, because that is why. It's time to get rid of the political elite ruling class, have real people that live amongst us in Colorado understand that and go back to represent the people. So it is time to make sure that insider trading stops in Washington, D.C.
This is a good question. It really does get at the issue of money in politics. And I think we still have a big problem here. Now, I'm not going to go with our friends on the left who believe capitalism's evil and rich people are bad. I don't believe that at all. I think if you're wealthy, it's a blessing from the Lord. If you've worked hard and built up your assets, your company, that's a good thing. But in politics, I think we have to be more careful. I think the idea of an insider trading ban is important. For all the reasons I think that my colleagues have said here, especially when you have people who've been like the Kennedys and these dynasties who've been in Washington for generations, and they build up connections and there's cronyism. It's just going to happen. You just know it's going to happen. So we need to police it more closely. I think that's a good thing to do, is to ban insider trading. The other thing I would say is that as a professor, an academic coming in here, we don't make a lot of money, I'll tell you that. And so it's not easy to run a campaign. Now, some people like Jared Polis come in with millions of their own money. And I feel like that's not fair. You know, it means so the only people who can run are millionaires. And You know, what about us? I mean, there are dedicated people who have a heart for their country and their state, who would work really hard, who would be excellent leaders. Those are maybe exactly the kind of people we need. So I think we also need limits on the ability of candidates to fund their own campaigns to make it more of a level playing field. That's something I would propose.
All right. This one is for Deborah to start. Okay. As we are told by the media, tensions between Russia and Ukraine are heightening. Why do you think that is, and why do you think the current administration is so hyper-focused on participating in the situation?
This one I have to stand for because I get hot under the collar. Our president just said yesterday he cannot guarantee the safety of Americans in the Ukraine. We know he cannot guarantee the safety of Americans anywhere, and that is inexcusable. My time in the Soviet Union, I was also behind the wall in East Germany, not just Berlin, but Dresden and Leipzig. I saw it firsthand. You know what brought down the Soviet Union? Was a man of conviction who knew the principles and stood face to face with Gorbachev, and that was Ronald Reagan. And he looked him in the eye. Absolutely, he deserves a round of applause. He looked him in the eye and he said, "This man means what he says." And he backed down, and it fell from within. And I was there when it happened, and I talked to the Soviet people who said, you know what? We respect America because of two things. America is strong, and America is good. We need to return to that place of strength in the world because, as Ronald Reagan said, peace through strength. Trust but verify. I got to tell you, when I heard about the phone call between Joe Biden and Putin, I did not know whether to laugh or cry because I'm sure it was not the same as Ronald Reagan facing down Gorbachev. If we want to secure our situation in the world, we have to show strength again, and we can do that. That's why Putin is moving on the Ukraine. We need to have support there. We cannot be telling the world that we cannot protect our own people abroad. It is time for that to stop and rebuild our military.
Okay, thank you for that question. It's a good one. It's a really important one. I've actually written an article exactly about that question. It's on townhall.com. It's also on my website if you want to check it out. But I feel like there's a big failure of leadership going on right now from the United States and a lot of weak will and knocking knees in Europe. We're dealing with a dictator in Vladimir Putin. He has removed term limits. He's unaccountable. He can do whatever he wants. He's a former intelligence agent, so he doesn't really get a lot of counsel anymore because everybody's afraid to tell him what they think. That's very dangerous. And in 1938, somebody like that, Adolf Hitler, was given a blank check by Neville Chamberlain and the Western powers, and they hoped that he would do the right thing, that he wouldn't invade anyone else, and he did. And I do think that we need to stand up to Putin here because it's not like Las Vegas where it's going to stay in Las Vegas. If you let them invade Ukraine, the Baltic states are in danger, whether they're in NATO or not. It's not going to matter because Putin is going to look at the West as he does now, and he's going to realize they're afraid of me, and they don't have the will to stand up to me. I think that we should offer U.S. air power to Ukraine and say, look, one Russian tank crosses the line, they're going to face the full might of U.S. air power. That's a deterrent, a policy of deterrence. And I think that just might cause him to stop and not to move forward, and we can avoid a war. As it is now, he's going to invade, and we're going to be involved one way or another.
How about that? It gives me a chance to say Joe Biden one more time. Joe Biden is an abject failure in about every aspect of his political life. He is known in his own party. He is laughed at in his own party for all of his foreign policy miscues. Barack Obama was caught saying that Joe Biden has an innate ability to mess things up. I would invite you to look on my website at the letter I wrote to Joe Biden on the 20th anniversary of the 11th of September. It's also out on the table. he is a disgrace as far as foreign policy goes. Putin understands this. Xi in China understands this. North Korea, Iran understand this. And he is a laughingstock. The problem is he's made us a laughingstock. And it is a very dangerous situation to be in. Now, with regard to Russia, I was stationed in Kazakhstan, the former Soviet Republic. I had excellent translators. They became good friends. I learned a lot, but I can tell you this about Russia. It is demographically a dying nation. So it is a country that has a possibility in the next 20 years of coming to the West, but we have to face them strong right now.
All right. We're going to start with Greg for the next one. As we've seen across the country, concerned parents are being labeled domestic terrorists. As a U.S. Senator, what steps would you take to ensure parents' voices are not subdued at school board meetings and school boards are receptive to the feedback, wants, and wishes of parents?
Thank you. As we saw in Virginia, that's a winning approach for Republicans. People are really worried about their children, whether it's critical race theory, this leftist brainwashing that's going on in the country, or whether it's just the, some states are not willing to fund charter schools, to give any freedom, to have any religious instruction. We can't pray in the schools. It's a wonder that why are we surprised things are getting so bad when they don't let us pray in schools? And so the trick about this is we're a federal system, and so if we're senators and we're in Washington, we don't have power over that. But we do have a bully pulpit, and we can speak to crowds like this. It's really the school boards, it's at the state level where these major battles need to take place, where we need to win back our schools and give people choice. That's really what they want. They want choice. They want a homeschool, they want a public school, they want charter schools, they want private schools. We should allow tax dollars to be given back to families who choose private education, who choose homeschooling. That's the least they can do for us. And so that's a discussion I think as senators we could launch, but ultimately the burden of that's going to fall on the states because that really is a state thing, and I think we should keep it that way. I don't want the feds doing that.
Well, at the federal level, once again, let's abolish the Department of Education. At the state level, I can tell you as a currently serving state representative, I have put in legislation for an education tax credit for parents who have children in school, in public schools and in charter schools, and we have bumped, it's been presented before, we have bumped the numbers up. After COVID, it's still probably not enough, frankly, but it's what we can do to get a start on this. We have to get constitutional candidates at the local level to elected. We have to find them, we have to recruit them, and then we have to support them. And when I'm talking school board, I'm talking sheriffs, I'm talking county clerks. And it all comes down to grassroots work that we have to get out. We have a tremendous opportunity in this election cycle to become delegates at the county level. We need to bring back conservative, unaffiliated people into the party that have been chased off by a party that is unresponsive and frankly doesn't care if they leave the party in the first place because it's more power for them. Ask them to come back. Register by the end of this month. Become a delegate. Vote for constitutional school board members, among other things. Thank you.
I started a group called Parents United America about 3 years ago because I stood with many of you here to wait 10, 12 hours against a comprehensive sex ed bill that they still shoved through in the last day of the legislature despite hundreds of parents showing up. It was at that point in time that I realized that we needed to magnify the voice of parents. This is where we can win, by the way. There is a resurgence coming out of the school boards. I worked to flip the school board in Douglas County. Congratulations with what happened here in Mesa County. And I tell you, good job. You are our sister county, and we are excited. We're going to take it to the rest of the state and the rest of the country. Here's the reality. This is where we can win. I don't care if you are a Democrat or Republican. You are a mom and a dad first. And when you're told that your beautiful child is inherently evil because they have less melanin in their skin, or they're a victim because they have more, everyone knows that we have gone too far. There's actually a lot we can do about this. First of all, I would love to replace Michael Bennett on the Intelligence Committee, because one of the things that he has is oversight of the FBI and the other intelligence agencies that were sicked upon well-meaning citizens who were simply standing up for their children. That has to stop. There needs to be federal oversight to end that weaponization against American citizens. Second, I would actually back a parental rights amendment. Our founding fathers never thought that our most basic right would be questioned. That is wrong, and we need to do something about it. There's many things we can do federally, and then we definitely have to get rid of union-backed school board candidates. We can do it, and we will do it.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is going to be our last question for you guys, and then until we get to the audience portion of the questions. So, we talked about inflation. We talked about it's the #1 concern of Americans right now. What many Americans may not realize is that the Federal Reserve Bank is a private bank that controls our country's currency. As a U.S. Senator, would you be willing to call for an audit of the Fed? Why or why not?
And I have 90 seconds to answer this. I don't know what I'm going to do with the other 89 seconds. Yes, audit the Fed. I think Ron Paul had it right. Rand Paul brings it forward. Audit the Fed. We have a tremendous problem with our currency at this point. This inflation, it's all, in my estimation, it's a lie. And like our election systems, the government audits itself and tells you how great it's doing. And in this case, it's telling us it's only $30 trillion in debt. Ladies and gentlemen, if they're willing to admit to $30 trillion and we know they lie, what are the actual numbers here? So we have a real crisis situation. And yeah, how do we fix this? We fix it with an economy that is second to none. China wants to outperform us, but they too lie about their numbers. I will say that if we have an economy that is unbridled from taxes and from the regulations and from the government tyranny, we can ultimately grow out of this. I don't see a better way or another option than that. And it may take a generation, but if we have a 20-something trillion dollar economy working slowly, we can recover from this, but we've got to cut government. Thank you.
Is it me? Okay. That's a great question. I say yes, audit the Fed. It has a very strange and exalted status, a rather mysterious status. It's really kind of weird. If you think about it, there's nothing else like it in the country. It's sort of above and beyond accountability. That is a bad thing. I really recommend a documentary called Inside Job. Has anybody seen that? It came out in 2010. It was about the 2008 financial crisis and all the strange insider shenanigans that were going on, actually in both our parties, unfortunately. But it really, you come away from that going, this is a huge problem. This Federal Reserve has so much insider connections with Wall Street, and they're doing things we don't know about, so absolutely, let's audit it. And other departments, other parts of our government that work with our government get audited. Why don't they get audited? I think that's a great question. Let's do it.
We most definitely have to audit the situation, because the reality is it is just one symptom of the worst problem that is happening right now. The reason why I decided to stand up and run in 2022 is I believe it is our last best chance to save our republic. You see, this country was founded on the amazing idea of checks and balances. America is an idea as much as it is a landmass, it is a people group, and it is this. It is to protect the individual rights of its citizen. How did our founding fathers establish that? A division of power, a check and balance. There's no check on the Federal Reserve right now, but we're seeing it everywhere. When you think about this, Sotomayor on the Supreme Court makes up a statistic about the number of children that are hospitalized for COVID to justify an unconstitutional mandate that should have been even made by an out-of-control executive. And then we have the Senate trying to end the filibuster and deconstruct the Senate. If we don't go right now and reestablish our checks and balances, we may forever lose this gift that we have been given. The best idea of governance in the history of mankind. We have to go and we have to reestablish checks and balances in every single area of our government. That's what the Senate does best. And that's what I commit to do. Go back and reestablish the boundaries that have made this country great, and then drag a lot of stuff into the light so you, the people, can know, and you, the people, can have the power back again in your hands.
All right, well now we're going to give all of you an opportunity to do your closing statements. So you're going to get 90 seconds again. And we're going to start with Ron, and then we'll go to Deborah, and then we'll go to Greg.
Well, thank you once again for coming out tonight. Here's the bottom line. I'm not a marketing gimmick here. I am exactly who you see, and maybe I am a bit of a firebrand. I reject the seditionist and the racist thing, but I am fighting right now as a state representative, and the battle now moves to the Senate because our federal government is weaponized, it is dangerous, and we have got to get it under control. I put in 32 years in the military as an enlisted man in the intelligence agencies as a commissioned officer. I can't stand back and watch what's happening. We need to restore Colorado and re-secure America. Nothing I have done was with the intent of running for U.S. Senate. I went to the January 6th rally because I wanted to see what my fellow Americans had to say about what was happening. I went to Maricopa County twice to see how that audit worked. The second time I brought help because they had a manpower shortage. I went to the Cyber Symposium in South Dakota to get an understanding of what those brilliant minds found out about our elections. I came out here to Mesa County to support Tina Peters because we have a rogue Secretary of State that I started a lawsuit against, and this is a mission. This is not a career choice. What more can I do? Thank you.
Thank you so much to our host, to stand for the Constitution, to my fellow candidates here. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to stand with you. And here's just what I want to let you know. As your senator, I commit to these things. I will do everything within my power to push back against the overreach of government into every area of our lives, from our personal health care decisions to how we are supposed to raise our children, or if we even have a say. I will work tirelessly to stop the overspending that is fueling inflation and crippling hardworking Coloradans all over our state. I will, in the face of rising crime and fentanyl pouring over our border, I will stand for security on our border, for a strong military abroad. I will work to defend, not defund, policing here at home. And I will make sure that we have an education system that puts parents and children back at the center and reestablish that right. We have this opportunity. And I want to tell you, if anyone here is tired of losing, I know I am. We have to do something different. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to ask our fellow citizens to join us because they are waiting to see people who are ready to lead and show them that we have the most moral and humane policies for the flourishing of every one of our fellow citizens. I will do that, but it will take all of us. And I want to tell you, we are the most blessed people to walk this planet, but if we don't stand together, we could be the last. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren. And we can do it if we stand together. Thank you, and God bless you all.
privilege to be here tonight. It's so refreshing to be in such a red, conservative, Christian, wonderful place. Thank you. I'm going to end with a story. When in the spring of 2013, I was teaching a graduate seminar in U.S. government and foreign policy. And I had 14 students in there. There were Russians, Chinese, Americans, Kazakhs, a Pakistani guy, a Syrian guy. And one of the textbooks I use is a book I recommend to you. It's by Robert Kagan. It's called The World America Made. And it's a book that sort of starts as a literary device. It starts with the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And it says, let's imagine America is George Bailey. Okay, what if there was no America? What would the world be like? And it's a really good counterfactual. The Japanese wouldn't have been defeated. The Nazis wouldn't have been defeated. The Cold War, the Soviet Union, there would have been nobody to stand up to it. What would the world have been like? And I thought it was a great book. And I was interested, at the end of teaching that book, I asked the students in that class, so what do you think? Do you agree or disagree? 13 of the 14 raised their hands and said, I agree. Can you guess which one did not raise his hand? An American guy named George from New York. He said America is still an imperialist nation. I don't agree with Kagan. How sad, how messed up. You know, I look at that and I go, what has gone wrong? Well, it's our education system socializing our students to say this is a bad country. It's about our foreign policy. George, you know, what Joe Biden is doing in Afghanistan. We're not doing right anymore. And it's about just restoring trust in government. Please join me. It's not too late. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, all of you, Deborah, Ron, and Greg. It was a pleasure having you up here. And what we're going to do is, as these guys exit the stage, Representative Hanks actually brought up our current Secretary of State, and that's when that cues the boo. There we go. Thank you. Okay. And we actually have a gentleman here who is going to be running against her, or is running for Secretary of State. So we're going to give him a few minutes to introduce himself to you. So before he comes up, though, let's give a round of applause for all of our senatorial candidates. Thank them for traveling all the way here. Some of them, they came from very far away. All right. And then we'll have them back up to do some audience questions at the end. So. All right, so. Did my mic? Oh, nope, here it is. I'm going to ask Mr. Dave Winnie to come up to the stage, and he's going to address you guys for a few minutes.
My name is David Winnie, and as your next Secretary of State, I commit to you that I will fight with everything I have within me to restore truth and transparency to the running of the Colorado government and elections. Many people don't realize, thank you, many don't realize that there's actually 4 divisions that report up into the Secretary of State, and some of that is running the Colorado government. I will, with tenacity, and with my background, because I am not a career politician, my background is a career information technology, including data security, and a lot of and project management. A lot of background that I have plays into what needs to be done to dig in, discover, and root out the corruption that has been buried into our areas of government, including elections. Now, I've heard a couple of things here. I'd like to try to play on some of the things that people have talked about. Common sense. Any of us should be able to pick up the statutes and the regulations that run our elections, and we should be able to read them and understand them and see what they're doing to serve us in these elections. I would suggest that I've been learning that the transparency is gone. It's buried in the complexity of all these things. So we can't do that. So it's time to restore that transparency and take away the complexity that they're using to bury us. We need to stop being buried, and we need to start taking control of our elections in our state once again. And I thank you. And I think we're hearing from some great candidates here tonight to see how they're also fighting for us to do this very thing. So my name is, and the other thing that I've heard of is, are we tired of losing? Well, we're winning. We're not a blue state, we're a red state. They keep lying to us. And if you haven't seen, they've talked about some books and some documentaries. If you have not seen the, I think a 7-year-old video done by Michelle Malkin, which is the Rocky Mountain Heist, I suggest you watch it. There's books written about this, whole books written about this, how they've stolen this state from us. It's time that we take it back, take it all back. So, here's what we do. We vote good people into office. They're winning, they're winning, they're winning, they're winning. Oh, they just lost. Oh, my goodness. No, they didn't just lost. It was stolen from us. It's time for us to stop that stealing. I will suggest to you that all of the policy things that we're hearing about, we've heard some great answers to questions. All of the policy things, I believe, in this state and in the United States will work themselves out properly if the people that we vote into office actually get into office. Right? So, my name is David Winnie, and this is what I commit to you with my background, IT, with my tenacity from the service in the United States Marine Corps, that I have the experience and the tenacity to serve you in these ways. David Winnie, Secretary of State.